That was, I don't know if I remember vividly, November 17, 1993. Yes. Abacha declared himself president. Based on his consultation, the civilians were offered to become state governors, and they took it. Okay? He also promised the politicians, National Constitutional Conference. We have to bring that together so that we can now decide on how to form political parties. Our country, an economic crisis that we are facing, blah, 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 blah. How many of you seated there, apart from those of you who probably will say, oh, I remember that day. How many of you seated there could see similarity in what Abacha said in that video 31 years ago? How many of you see the similarity with what they are saying today? We have no other country but this Nigeria. We must, all the economy, blah, 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 blah. Our people have been going through a lot, so we need to help them, kind of. And that's pretty much what these same guys are telling you today, isn't it? So 31 years ago, it was said at the time that that speech was one of the most heartbreaking speech MKO Abiola ever heard in his life. And it was pretty much the last. Because that was so far, far, far off from their agreement. The agreement was for him to what? To remove a Shonekon. And then since the court did not stop the announcement of the state governor, and some of the state governors were going to be governors, civilian. So Abacha should just come in for a few months, and Abacha is having a different plan. So immediately Abacha announced himself. Of course, those who were not part of the sharing at the time, they quickly assembled behind Abiola. Abiola has been betrayed by his own friend. He is never going to be president if he failed to do something. So then the same Abacha used the same people around Abiola, the same people who collect money from Abacha. They told Abiola to come back to Nigeria and declare himself, since Abacha won't do it. A Edo declaration, you remember that? Even at that point, when he declared himself, and Abacha heard that on the radio, and they quickly deployed the soldiers to go grab him. Abiola had the chance of escaping, but his friends told him Nigerians were ready to march. Abiola should stay. Abiola was already at what we heard, though, he was on his way to a private airstrip, not to the airport. Even though he granted a BBC interview where he said, I'm inside my car. That was when he was grabbed because he had to come back when he was being tailed. He could have left and but he was told he shouldn't. He should stay. There are a little more pressure. International communities, Nigerians and the rest. Boom, Abacha will succumb. That never happened because the moment Abiola was grabbed, those who told him to declare himself, those who said all that needed at the time was to further the pressure, and that was all Nigeria needed. They ended up joining Abacha. You see, whatever you are witnessing today in Nigeria, young people who are now calling it a gig, collecting propaganda job from APC, PDP, the establishment of Nigeria, to continue to confuse you, using a tribe, ethnic, religious, and all of these things to keep us divided. They are not new. After Abacha started hunting those he suspected as his political enemies, just like Bokwari was hunting those he suspected as his political enemies, putting them up on a trump-up charges. Abacha did it too. Those were just people who were like having chats among friends, or they were having a phone conversation. They didn't know they have tapped their phones, or those who grant interviews, and then from their interview, they said something, they disappeared. Those few lucky ones were actually tried and convicted of treasonable felonies. There are many others that were not successful. I mean, they were not so lucky. They were killed. Others that disappeared the day Abacha died. Over 1,400 journalists. Yeah, you hear me right. There are people who thought they were dead, but they were languishing in different prisons all over Nigeria. In 5 years of Abacha, the day he died, over 1,400 journalists, human rights activists, or this or that, or random people were freed from jail, who were never really tried, or maybe tried and convicted. I'm talking about those who were like missing, that people thought they were dead. That was how brutal Abacha was. And that is still happening in Nigeria today. 36 states in Nigeria. The governors there, they are little Hitlers, lawless criminals. Whatever you witness at the center is the reflection of what is happening in the remaining 36 states plus Abuja, 37. That was how Abacha was. Abacha was very clear. Everybody is robbing these people. It's my turn. Why are you ganging up? Why are you trying to remove me? I will do everything to keep this power. Just like the successive criminals sacrificed thousands, tens of thousands of Nigerian lives on fake elections just to keep power, only to get to that power and punish Nigerians, loot them blind, abuse them, break the laws as they like, because they're always above it anyway. That was what Abacha was like. Many of you remember that they told us, yes, those who were telling us how evil Abacha was, the reason why we were hungry, we were starving, people were like losing jobs, no value, this or that, right? The same thing you are witnessing 31 years after now. How many of you remember that they actually ingrained it in our memory that Abacha was an illiterate? How many of you will remember that? That Abacha could barely speak any, could barely join, string together 3 words to make a sentence. How many of you remember that? So if you are witnessing propaganda today, it has always been in existence. The more things changes, the more they remain the same. Today, you are seeing young people collecting gigs, from politicians to defend the horrible, horrible policies that affects them too. But they will tell you, you are wrong. The government is doing its best. You are just an hater. You are just enemy of the country. Why do you hate Nigeria? Blah, 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 blah. And Nigerians were just in the middle of it. Porn. So Abacha was fighting the politicians because he knew they were all the same. But we didn't know. It was this evil that poor people were praying that something should happen. God should intervene. But why people were praying for Abacha to buy northern Nigeria? It was being prayed for, not just that. Across Nigeria, there were young people. They were clamoring for Abacha to become a civilian president, like Museveni of Uganda, like some of those who turned themselves to civilian president later. People like Paul Biya of Cameroon. Abacha was going to transform to a civilian president, and there were Nigerians, artists. Today, you see artists, filmmakers, Nollywood actors, actresses. You are seeing musicians. Some of you are even surprised to see footballers. Oh, footballers were successful, but they are supporting Tifnumbu. Oh, no. Young people who were the victims of the bad governance at the time, the real victims who were jobless, who were poor, they were willing and ready to join Abacha's youth earnestly ask for Abacha. Earnestly ask for Abacha. And guess those who headlined the rallies? 2 million Nigerian, 2 million youth asked for Abacha to become their civilian president. Finidi George, Daniel Amokachi, JJ Okocha, John Fashanu, the musicians, Shino Peters, Pasuma Wonder, King Sani Ade, Chief Kolinti Anyila, Oyeka Onwenu, just like that, Daddy Shoki, and all of those, the reigning musicians or reigning stars of that era. No matter what you remember of Abacha, I hope you remember this too, especially John Fashanu's speech in March 1998. And that was 26 years ago. And compare that time and now that you have young people who are like struggling graduates, jobless young people whose only ambition is to become special advisors, personal assistants to criminals in government, and they are ready to tell you that it is not what you think. These people also, they are very good. Forget about all the bad things you hear. People were doing that, including people that were not poor. They were headlining the campaign for Abacha to continue.
Today, Nigerian youth have continued to achieve accolades in all spheres of human endeavor. In sport, in science, technology, in the entertainment field, in the industrial world, in every facet of human existence, a Nigerian head must be found proudly towering among the best and the brightest of the world. The performance of Nigerian sportsmen and women in recent world competitions is a glowing tribute to the fact that our youth have made up their minds to rocket our nation to the forefront of world recognition, where they rightly belong. We should recall with pride that under this present administration, in 1993, we won the Under-17 World Cup in Japan. And in 1994, we won the African Cup of Nations in Tunisia. And the same year, our nation put up a fantastic performance at the World Cup in America. And again, in 1996, our youth conquered the world by winning the soccer gold and the long jump gold in Atlanta. And this year, 1998, we are on course to win the World Cup. I am proud to be associated with the efforts currently being made to ensure that our nation gets the deserved victory in France. We, the youth of our nation, should be thankful we have such a man with foresight and a high sense of responsibility in the person of Air Commodore Emeka Imarua, our Minister of Youth and Sport. In spite of the enormous problems which face all Africans who dare to excel or to achieve greatness in the developed nations, many of our youth, in the true spirit of the impressible Nigerians, refuse to give up, to engage in searching for lasting solutions to our national and international problems, which can only be brought about through a purpose, courageous and honest leadership. For it is only such a leadership that can bring about the desired final solution to the problems that threaten the aspirations of our youth. I call on all of us to rededicate ourselves to the service and love of our dear beloved nation. Most importantly, let us please remember what a former head of state once said. Indeed, our generations of Nigerians and future generations of Nigerians have no other country but Nigeria. We must remain here and salvage it together. Brothers and sisters, distinguished guests.
And for the record, those were like international stars, Nigerian footballers. So money wasn't an issue. So they are not like a poor. So some of you are seeing them today singing the praises of Tifnumbu, international stars. They did it 26 years ago. So whatever you are doing online, whatever you are seeing or witnessing online today, they existed back then too. And as for Abacha, it was going to be, nobody was going to stop him. Because like he said in his coup speech, he said he was going to organize a national conference. Indeed, he organized it. And they picked a date to transfer from military to civilian. But under one condition, at that conference, the entire conference agreed. They created 5 political parties. So 5 political parties out of the national conference organized by Abacha, all of the 5 political parties adopted Abacha as their presidential candidate. But for governor, senate, and all of that, all of you, if you go contest that one. Do you understand? That was what prompted this year campaign. And since they knew then that Nigerians are always attracted to their own stars, put it that way, football created those guys, and victory from it is what they were savoring. So the establishment had to milk it. Because if a portion of the population can see their stars, all of them all together, telling you how greatly they were helped by this dictator, and his leadership style is going to help the Nigerians of that generation and the generations yet unborn. They don't born una now. 26 years ago, some of you watching me right now, you were not born. They were talking about you because back then, the man that controls the leveler of power is like next to God. You know, so they say God be patient. Like if God should be punishing us based on our transgressions, majority of us go down by or go down turn to something else. But the person that is the president of Nigeria, can determine when you are going to die. As long as he is breathing, he is as powerful as that, as like nobody can ask me. Abacha is a very good example of that. Nobody is untouchable. Abacha was that powerful. The only thing left for Nigerians at that time was for them to close their eyes and pray in the name of General Sani Abacha. We ask, we demand, because it was so powerful that it was so present. There was no social media. All these things that you are seeing on social media today, they were things that we say in hushed tones during the times of Abacha. And Abacha was practically telling people that, listen, they can demonize me. They can say all of this. I'm not saying I'm good. But you see those people who are demonizing me, they are more evil because their stock in trade is tribal, ethnic, religious division. Abacha was presented to us as somebody we know if speak. We know a stark illiterate. In fact, they make jokes about Abacha around that time because those who were telling the stories of Abacha, the Lagos Ibadan media, they were the ones that hung Goodluck Egbere Jolantan in the public square to be lynched, all right, for, in his own way, for trying to fix the same Nigeria. Then the same Lagos Ibadan Expressway media who have managed to recruit enough for the same social media were those who paraded the dictator, a coup plotter, as a renewed or a repentant Democrat, Bokuwari, and they sold him as the change package that brought Nigeria to this state anyway. So Abacha knew. A majority of us grew up having this picture of Abacha, of somebody that was just like inherently evil. Like, why was he so evil? People were suffering. They were looting this money. Why? And people were not just that, people were disappearing, people were dying. High-profile politicians were slaughtered and killed by Abacha. But we didn't know that Abacha being a problem, Abacha was actually killing the Nigeria problems. It's like, it's like internal cleansing. You see those who presented themselves as better than Abacha, those who loved us, those who told us about democracy. Look at what they are doing to us now. And if you look back, what is the difference? Listen to Abacha describing his own distractors. He said, they are more evil than me. And that's now, I want you to listen to this because this video is also like 26 years old, just few months before Abacha died. Okay? He had this to say about Nigeria.
To ensure that some of these incidents are avoided. But at the same time, the transition program is for the nation, but the major players in the transition program are the politicians themselves. So the politicians themselves will have to come and bury their differences. Will have to play politics the way it is, not politics of animosity, not politics of religious or ethnic, sentiments or anything, no matter how devastating to the unity and stability of the nation. Once it favors that individual politician, he is ready to exploit it at the expense and at the cost of the unity or stability of the nation. So what we have done is clear, it's simple, it's straightforward, and it's step by step. But I tell you, we know we are all Nigerians. The politicians themselves, it's a big challenge on them. They need a change of attitude, a change of mind for them to come and play responsible politics. And that's why, even as far as rotation is concerned, as far as power sharing is concerned, which is the main issue in the politics of this country, we took the pain to go into detail and divide this nation into 6. So the question of majority, the question of minority is absolutely immaterial. It's question of quality. It's question of the individual Nigerian who possesses the right leadership, who possesses the right quality. That is the issue. So the question of marginalization is completely out of it, is absolutely addressed. So there is no section of this country that will claim to be marginalized as far as the present system is concerned. So the issue of marginalization is out. The issue of sharing or involvement in power in this nation is out. And all these things we took upon account of our past experiences as far as the political evolution of this nation is concerned. And we believe and we pray what we have done is something which is enduring, which will reinforce the peace, the stability, the unity, and the understanding of this nation, and which will form the basis of a stronger, a sounder, democratic system to ensure that some of the...
Did that sound like somebody who is a stark illiterate? Abacha spoke clearer English language than Buhari. Is that a lie or a lie? Abacha he clearly spoke better English than Buhari. But you see, Tifnumbu, hi, and their gang, despite being a double